Good evening and welcome to the March meeting of the Lower Makefield Township Historical Commission. We have 4 of us here tonight, so there's a quorum. So we're going to go through our agenda items. Agenda items include approval of the minutes from the January meeting. We have a couple of items under our existing business we're going to go through, and then we have a couple of new business items to talk about. So without any further ado, let me just get started with item number 1, which is the review and approval of the January 2023 minutes. Chris sent them out earlier this week. And question, does anybody have any comments or corrections on those minutes?
I did not.
Can
All good.
then get a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Seconded by Helen. Okay. Then any all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No objections. Good. Thank you, Chris. If you would just send them over to Katie for posting, we'd appreciate it. Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
So existing business. Let's go through some of the topics that we've been talking about. So first up, Chris, is the catalog township-owned materials. We had applied for that grant last year that was not accepted. So what we were doing is going to look at getting some feedback from the administrator as to why that grant was declined. Chris, did you have a chance to maybe reach out and contact and maybe get any information or set up a call?
I lost track of it, but I will give her. I'll reach out to her tomorrow morning when they open up, and we'll get something set up.
All right, that would be great. The second item around the CLG grant, we're going to come to that under new business. I sent something out, so we'll come back to that and discuss it then. And then the other thing, Chris, is we were just going to get together some new members, to go through sort through the items in the cabinet. I would say that Tom, we're going to come later on in new business around some members that Tom and I interviewed, and there's a lot of people that expressed support and willingness to help on this topic. So I would say let's not do that until our new members join, which should be this month. So by the time we get to April, we should have 2 new members, and then maybe we can revisit that point at that time. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Victor's not here, and unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to follow up with him on the Facebook content calendar. So I'll do that offline. See if he had any. I'm sure he's busy with school right now, and that might not get picked up until he comes back. I think he'll join us again in May. Talk a little bit about Patterson Farm and where we are with the resubmission for the National Register. If you would, Helen.
Yeah, well, I really don't have much to add. I'm still waiting to hear the descriptions from the architecture firm that was approved, and we haven't had our first meeting yet. Because I don't want to do the descriptions twice.
Understood. Yeah. We won't have these for months, though. I mean, that firm hasn't. I don't even know if the contract's done. I'll know tomorrow night. But
I don't know if it's been signed yet. I know they picked one, but I don't know if it's been signed yet. And there was some talk about pulling in Bucks County Community College to do the actual measuring of the buildings. And Jim said he'd contact me when that happened, so that I could be there and basically make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to.
So we're going to be there Saturday morning. And
This Saturday?
Yeah. I'll let you know. It's supposed to be by 8:30 or 9, but because of the weather, we may delay it till the afternoon. But they're only going to really be looking at 2 of the outbuildings, Helen. In fact, I talked to Dennis Stedman before we sent the proposal over to the Board of Supervisors, because they were looking at striking that from the proposal. And I said, this class isn't going to get to be able to document all the outbuildings on Patterson Park. I mean, So as far as I know, that is still in the proposal for the architectural firm, and hopefully it'll get addressed there.
To do what? To do
The documentation of the outbuildings.
the documentation of the outbuildings.
Yeah, to at least give us drawings of the elevations.
So are they planning to get the students to measure them, and then they're going to?
Now, the students are going to just do a couple of things for their own project, right? I don't know how it really will inform the overall project, because again, students can't get to all the buildings. They don't have enough time.
So the architect's going to remove all all the doors have been screwed closed and barred up by the township in the last administration. So all of that has to be removed before you can even get access to those buildings.
Right. I have to look at the proposal for some of the buildings. It'll be floor plans and elevations, but for some of it just might be elevations, exterior only. But I'll
Well,
have to
there's a
look.
lot of subsurface stuff too. The well that's in that well house next to the the Janney house, or there's, whatever we decide we're calling it, the Joseph Yardley house is quite deep.
Mhm.
And it's down at least 10 steps.
The
So,
action item, and what we wanted to do here was, we had the offer from the PA SHPO to review the documentation, what we have today, and give us guidance on what else that we need. And what they
Okay.
specifically asked us for was just.
well, they all have to be accurately architecturally described, cited on the GPS sighting, and then guesstimated at what the date is. That's the best anybody can do.
Right, so what we have, let's just, here's what my suggestion would be. Let's take the documentation that you prepared for the ad hoc property committee last year, because you documented the kind of the lineage of the properties, who owned that where. I know that you and Tom have been working also on the crop yields with that agricultural significance. We have already the site plans. They exist from the ad hoc committee, and I can take some photographs. Now let's just have a call at the SHPO's office and say, this is our strategy. What else do we need? And get their feedback. And in the meantime, that'll give the architects a chance to actually go through and do the drawings of the buildings.
Yeah. Are we doing things like the well that is under there's a slab next to the pack house that used to have a windmill on it. And underneath the windmill is a well. Are we putting that stuff in?
I don't think it's there right now. I mean, it really
it's still there.
I know, I meant it's in our documentation right now. That's what I meant. I think it really, the discussion to have with them is, what's the basis of significance here? And,
okay.
I mean, certainly we could pursue it from an agricultural significance. I'm sorry, right. Architectural or agricultural. Now, when I talk to the SHPO, they seem to say, no, these are farms. You should look at it from an agricultural point.
I agree.
Right. So with that in mind, from an architectural point of view, do we need anything more than just, the descriptions that you have and then the drawings that we'll get?
Well, how many stories? You need to know how deep they are, where foundations are, because there's a foundation of the old house on Mirror Lakes Road. There's another foundation between the end of the Satterthwaite house and the first barn that was demolished not even 10 years ago. So there are several places they can be pointed out. We know where the septic fields are. We should certainly be pointing those out to the architects. They're part of consideration in case they're trying to put in other driveways or paving or whatever. They got to know where the underground stuff is.
Right.
Well, I'm not sure I understand then, Helen. I thought we were going to focus on the agricultural stuff. Do we need that kind of detail on the architectural stuff to get this submitted?
That's what they wanted. That was one of the prime things that they discussed. Some of these, the building that was demolished by the township was a potato barn, which was a specific size and shape and used for specific items. So it had a deep cellar for the potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole building was pushed down in top of it. So it's still there under a mound of dirt. I don't think we're going to be uncovering it at this point, but it could be something that was done. because it became one of the major crops in the 1940s. So it's one of those, you know, I don't know. So we'll have to discuss that with the architect, I think.
Okay,
How
But
about
they need to know where the systems are that are currently being, are part of the utility of the house, where its septic field is kind of important, where its well is. They have to know how that's getting fed currently, if they're going to be switching it at all.
who's they?
The architect.
Right, but do we need
And I
that,
don't think that's been put on any other plan.
but do we need that information for the application for National Historic Registry?
Hmm, I don't know. I'd ask them.
I mean, based on the original application that I read, the things that they were looking for didn't include that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, well, you know, it's just something, I'm not sure.
Okay,
We'll
all right,
look at that.
I just raised the point.
Why don't we do this? Why don't I put together a directory like we did for the grant and then start to upload some of the documents that we already have, some of the more recent ones, like the work.
Some of them are already there.
Yeah, so we'll create that and then we'll review it. The three of us will review it. And then I can put it into PA share and then we can arrange a call with Ben is his name and just say, can you review this information? This is what we're going. This is our strategy. What else do you think we need? So. Sound good?
Perfect.
Like a plan?
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll get some feedback. And you know, I think you're right, Helen. I think it's better that we do that now because I don't have a timeline yet for the kickoff of the architect's work. But if we can get some feedback before that kickoff, that would be great because then we could take that to the kickoff meeting and then say, hey, this is what they're looking for.
Joe, I just got a text from somebody that there's some interference from a TV or something. Does anyone have a TV on?
I don't have a TV on.
Okay.
I do hear something.
Let you know that there's some people talking in my background. Let me go on mute, see if that helps.
Okay.
Is that better?
Okay.
Yeah, I heard it a little bit.
I
not
don't
very
know.
much. Yeah.
They're not texting back. Okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
I think you're right. So if we do that, because it would be good to get that feedback before the architects start their work, so we can kind of give some input into that.
Okay,
And I
Sounds
have
good.
not heard yet. We have the ad hoc property committee tomorrow night, so I don't know if the contract's finalized, nor do I have a timeline for kickoff. But when I find out, I'll let you guys know. All right.
yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Slate Hill Cemetery. So big news was that we got our Keystone Preservation Grant submitted. So thank you everyone
Yay!
for your support.
Good job, Joe.
So that's good. So now the timeline from here goes to they'll let us know in June, by the beginning of June, whether we got the award. And if we got the award, the money becomes available in September. Or at least the money from the state becomes available from September. And then we have to work with the township around the matching funds availability and we can start working. But in the meantime, for those of you that have been there, the cemetery is really a mess, right? And it's, again, winter, old trees, there's branches and things everywhere. And I remember, Helen, you saying that there used to be an annual spring cleanup day at the cemetery. Now we were talking to Derek Fuller, who is with the township and looking at getting either some of those trees removed, the dead trees removed, but also some of the big branches and big parts of the tree that are laying in
There's a bunch of old locusts in there that are, that are kind of hanging over. There's a couple of widowmakers and there's a big locust in the center that's covered in ivy, which will start dropping branches on pretty sensitive tombstones underneath it. So yeah, they need to be taken out. Unfortunately, I've had some discussions with the garden club before over it. They were very upset with me, but trees are not friends to cemeteries, and they really cause more damage. The public section, which is also called the segregated section, was the section that had the least amount of attention because the Falls meeting took care of the other two sections. But that section, Estelle Everest who was this great old lady who lived in Yardley, used to come up every year with the ladies from the garden club. And, you know, that's why the little benches are there and the water and all that stuff. There was a water barrel and there was all kinds of stuff on that side because she took care of that.
Mhm.
And she planted things that are now a little overgrown. And nobody was directing, you know, what happened to that section. So she just kind of took responsibility for it. But you know, the Franklinia trees in there, I'm not sure what kind of condition that's in now. And there are some other real specimen plants in that section that we don't want to damage when the trees are coming down. So I have to point it out to the new building, the public works director, where
Right.
they are. But anyway.
So if we can get Public Works to at least clean up some of the bigger branches, and most of them are back around the perimeter, things that would be too heavy for us to lift or would actually need a chainsaw to be moved.
They actually had a landscaper that came in and cut and took stuff out for them before. And I know we used Comcast Cares, which is a cleanup that Comcast puts on every year. I need to get a hold of the guy that does that. But he came down several years in a row and cleaned out the back section of the public
Yeah.
graveyard and used to take down all the brush, etc. So the township could get that done for free if we get in touch with those people. They showed up. Oh, there must have been at least 50 people that showed up with Comcast Cares. But
Yeah.
because of COVID, that all went away. But I'm sure Comcast still has, it's their employees come out and do public service
Right.
in each community.
That's very nice. Is that something that you can follow up on, or do you want me to follow up on that we try to contact them?
Yeah, I will try to find that. Maybe the person who's in the waiting room to talk about Slade Hill should
Yeah, maybe
come in
John,
now.
maybe, yeah, I guess now would be a good time to bring Monica in because, you know, we are discussing it and maybe she has some input for us. John?
I don't know. Can you get a hold of our sponsor?
I don't know how we could.
Screen, is there?
Do what?
Usually there's a chat option on Zoom. I don't see it on this screen.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, I don't
invited-
see it either.
I just
I'm looking.
invited the host for assistance.
We just have pin, show self view, or hide.
Now, there's something I have said, ask for help.
Yeah, try it.
I tried it. Is there any help coming? All right, we'll come back to it. But Helen, actually, outside of Comcast, just in general, some of the other.
Sorry, guys, we just got your request. What was that?
You want to bring Monica? We're discussing Slate Hill now, and maybe it will be a good time to bring Monica in to get her input.
Sure, we'll bring her right in.
All right, thank you. Hello, Monica.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Welcome. We are the Historical Commission of
You
Lower
too.
Township.
Oh, I am aware. It's so exciting to be here. Unfortunately, I don't have much input. I am just eager to get involved in Slate Hill. I moved to the community during COVID. I live near the cemetery and I see that it needs help. And I've been trying to figure out who runs it. And I found you guys this week and saw the meeting was tonight. So I figured I'd just attend tonight's meeting and see how I can help and support.
Awesome. Well, that's great. We really appreciate that. We were just saying that we didn't know if you could hear us.
I
We
could.
submitted a grant to Pennsylvania for some work on the markers in terms of rewriting them, uprighting the ones that are falling over, resetting the ones that are sinking into the ground. So we're waiting to hear on that. We'll hear sometime in the summer and maybe start working that in the fall. But what we were really just discussing now was just cleanup. I mean, there's a lot of dead branches and just stuff laying around the cemetery. And we were discussing how to get that done. There's some work that could be done by the public works themselves in terms of getting some of the bigger ones out. We have to also talk to them about removing the dead trees. And then Helen was suggesting we contact a group called Comcast Cares that come out and maybe help with the cleanup.
I think they do it on Earth Day. Joe. It's a special Earth Day project for Comcast. So
Yeah,
that's in April.
I heard you guys talking about it and I looked up Comcast Cares because that's interestingly my husband works for NBC Universal, which is part of it. Yeah, and it looks like it's April or May or something like that. I was thinking, I think that's a great idea. And if they've done it and they'll do it, it's not amazing. 50 people showing up is fantastic. One of the things I was thinking, aside from just obviously putting myself towards it, but I have a friend who's involved in the Boy Scouts, and they said the Eagle Scouts are constantly looking for new ways, new
Yep.
projects to do, and this could maybe be a really good use of
It's
their.
been done. Yeah, it's already been done. I know there was a point there where they were no longer accepting our request for scouts to do any work because there had been so many scout projects doing cleanup at Slade Hill. But we have some projects, so yeah, if there's any scouts out there, we'd be happy to work with them to develop some leadership projects that they could do with members of their troop. And so easily get in 100 hours of work if they can get it by the pass it through the council to get a project approved. And
Right.
it would be perfect for an Eagle Scout project. We could certainly do another one. I remember a guy named Matt Reed filled 3 dump truck loads for Public Works with debris that he had chopped out of the back end of that cemetery at one point. And Public Works came and picked it up for him and took it to the yard, but the scouts chopped it all out and hauled it into a pile and made it easy for Public Works to get to it. So we can do that again, that kind of thing. And there's various survey of where stones are now and where they may be slightly under the ground that kids could do from a troop. So
You know, this also might be a good opportunity to get the community involved.
right.
Putting out, I mean, based on the response I got from my Facebook post, I'm sure we could get a dozen people to come out. And, rather than sort of pigeonhole this into a scout project or Comcast or whatever, if we actually got the citizens of Lower Mayfield to come out and pitch in, I think that would be more meaningful.
Good point.
I would. So let's hold on the scouts, because I mean, Tom, I agree with you on the cleanup. I think that it would be great if we can involve the community, and it could be the scouts too, as part of an overall cleanup day. I think that would be great. But I do agree with Helen. If there are Eagle Scouts that are looking for projects, I mean, Helen talked about a few. We also could start to look at designing some interpretive signs for the cemetery, because there's really nothing at the cemetery that would tell a visitor why this cemetery is important. Right? You go look it up on Wikipedia.
We've always wanted to put up a historic marker with a maybe a map of the cemetery that people could see who we know is buried where. Explain the evolution of the cemetery. And yeah, I mean, certainly do a little bit of history project with that. There's plenty of stuff that an individual scout could do with. They have to show leadership and they have to direct other kids in order for it to be an Eagle project. But to certainly, I'd be happy to work with somebody to get some projects done. On top of that, we had always planned to have probably a ghost tour this October. We wanted to do Civil War soldiers ghost tours. So if you're interested in anything like helping to manage that would be excellent.
I'm a producer for my job, so I produce
Awesome.
things. I'm happy to help. I love cemeteries, and I live
You're
across the street
signed
from
up.
an
You're
old beautiful
signed
one.
up.
So anything I can do to help.
And
I have a question. I know, because I know this is very touchy, but does anyone maintain the stones as far as like cleaning them the correct way? And this might be too detailed. I can talk to someone.
No, that's
about
perfectly
this.
explained. We have not really touched anything so far, but part of our Keystone grant is to basically reassess the conditions of the stones and what needs to be done for each one. We do have a condition report from 1993. So we have some days 20 years ago, literally, that where somebody did actually look at those stones and assess them, and we can see how much they deteriorated from them. So that might be another whole Eagle project. Who knows?
Monica, You're right. I mean, the focus of the Keystone Grant Project has been kind of resetting and re-uprating the stones that have fallen over. And when Tom and I were talking to the consultant, I mean, he was saying that the cleaning of the stones is something that we could actually do, because it's usually just getting some water and a soft bristle brush. You want to get the moss and things off. You want to just take, and there's some guidelines you can look at online and tell you exactly how to do this. So that's another great community project that we could arrange in terms of just having them clean. But I would wait until we got the other ones repaired first, if we can clean them also.
Yeah, the major issue is there's no water available at the graveyard.
Mhm.
So we'd have to go over to the American Legion or someplace else to secure some water, which could be arranged, I'm pretty sure. So, it could be done. But again, it's going to take some motivation. So right now, that's what we're looking at possibly doing for the fall. We could use some more help. We're hoping to get 2 more members within the next couple of weeks, so we can get this organized. And then we need people to start with looking for people to play the parts of the various soldiers, get them dressed, get the whole thing together. It would be really fun to do.
Yeah, any way I can help with anything at the cemetery, starting with spring cleanup all the way to the fall, I would love to.
Okay.
Could
Do you
you
know how-
leave your information with Joe, and we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
You know how to contact us?
I don't. Well, I mean, I guess it's on the website where I found this. I'm sure I can contact you there. Or is there a specific email you'd like me to write to?
It's just my name, joe.camerata@gmail.com.
Oh, there, it's right there. It's Camerat at Gmail. Got it.
I don't know if our contact information is on the website. That's why I asked.
Fabulous. I'll send it now. It's lovely to meet you all. Thanks for everything you're
Thank you,
doing.
and thank you for
Thank
volunteering.
you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate it, Monica. Thank you.
Of course. Take care.
All right, so let's kind of summarize it. So 2 motions. One is for the cleanup day, that we try a community cleanup day, and maybe Tom can test his Facebook skills again and put out a call for that. So
Yeah, you have a time in mind for that,
let
Joe?
me talk to Derek, because I think it would be helpful if they got the bigger things out of the way first, right? Like, for example, there's these big trees and branches back by the perimeter. If they don't clean that out first, if Public Works doesn't clean that out, then we're not going to be able to get back there and get all the other smaller things done, right? So let me talk to Derek and see when Public Works can do that, and then
Yep.
we can work.
And then they mow regularly. I think they mow at least 4 times in the course of the summer. So they will probably do that. The problem is when they mow, they hit stones and they hit things. So that is the issue.
And then to get
But
them to commit to hauling the debris that we gather up over
Right.
to the yard. Yeah.
So action item 1 is Joe contacts Derek about getting the bigger stuff done. Then we set a date, and Tom looks at recruiting people through Facebook. And then I guess the third is that Helen proposed that we have a ghost day in the fall, and that Helen and Monica can start looking at dates and planning for that ghost day.
Usually
summer?
around Halloween.
Yep.
So,
All right.
and it can be a fundraiser as well. Give a donation when you come to the event. That's the way we ran it last time, and I think we made close to $4,000. So it was really, quite interesting and fun for the community, and we try to bring it up. And there's more people that I've met in recently that are interested, especially in the Civil War soldiers, the African American Civil War soldiers, and the women that supported them during the war. So we can certainly kind of do that if you wish, or we can just say all kinds of veterans that are buried in there, because there's several who were from the Mexican War, and we think there might be Joshua Anderson, if I can figure out. I mean, he owned the property, he donated the 3rd section.
Right.
It would be logical that that's where he wanted himself buried, and I'm pretty sure his son Daniel's buried there as well, which would be 2 Revolutionary War soldiers.
Mhm.
And that anniversary is coming up in 2026.
Right.
So that's kind of an exciting part of it as well.
Okay, good. Chris, we got our action items down?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ad hoc property committee. So just a quick update. So the ad hoc property committee recommended that Seiler Drury, the architecture firm, be selected in order to develop the master plan. That recommendation was approved by the Board of Supervisors. And as far as I know, they're now contracting. The township is now contracting with Seiler Drury to start work. We have our monthly meeting tomorrow night, so I'll find out the status of the contract. And most importantly, from my perspective, when's the kickoff meeting? Okay. So, just as an aside, during the project, there will be two to three opportunities for public input into the project. So I think as members of the Historical Commission, it would behoove us to be there for these public input section. So we're making sure that the right types of historically appropriate, to say, types of activities are being proposed for the farms. So, okay, and I'll keep you updated on it. New business items. Tom, can you just say a few words on new member recruitment? In terms of the types of responses you got, what we did and kind of where we are. You're on mute, Tom.
I recently joined this Lower Makefield is a great place to live Facebook page. And it's been very informative, all sorts of information about the township. And so I decided to just put a post on there saying who I was and that the Historical Commission is looking for additional members. And I think 9 people responded that they were interested. And of those, I think 7 actually went further and got in touch with me and set up an appointment to just introduce themselves to me and Joe. And then I think at the end of the day, we had six people, Joe, that we actually met with. And quite honestly, every one of them was quite good, quite relevant to the kinds of things we're looking for. Interestingly, several of them were interested in documenting the information that the township has on the historic information that we have. Well, actually, one of them says he has a digital scanner, and it was part of his business at one point was scanning documents and preserving them. So Joe wrote a letter to was it to Dave?
Dave, yeah, the township.
Yeah, to Dave. Giving the names of the people that we met with, and we highly recommended 2 people, and then also recommended the others that we met with, 4 others. So presumably they are meeting with the Board of Supervisors, and we'll have 2 new members shortly.
Excellent. Good work, guys.
I was really, first of all, it was great that Tom just put it out there and got that kind of response. But I was really also impressed with their enthusiasm for this. I mean, they brought in some really good skills and just the overall enthusiasm. And it's like we talked about with Slate Hill. I mean, we could probably get more volunteers to help us do stuff, right?
Yeah. I think
reach out that way.
Whomever doesn't get selected is going to be quite disappointed, I think.
But it doesn't mean they can't be involved, right?
No, absolutely. And it's a dynamic commission. People come and go routinely, so there might be opportunities in the future.
And I think that just looking at like the project that Chris scoped out, I mean, we could use support. I mean, we can use people to come in and start to catalog things and then eventually digitize things. So
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I liked your suggestion about trying to do the cleanup through a community day, because it just allows us to engage more people from the township.
I mean, I think there were only 1 or 2 people that we met with that actually knew where the cemetery was.
Oh, no.
And quite honestly, I've lived in the town for 40 years and I knew there was a cemetery there, but I did beyond that, I knew
Really?
nothing.
It's impressive, I think. I'm a cemetery person. We used to live across the street from Woodland Cemetery in Philadelphia when we were students at Penn. And I would, my kids would take walks in the cemetery. So yeah, they've all been involved with it from the beginning. And I guess two of them did their Eagle projects associated with the cemetery. So
Well, I'm impressed now, and I think that's the point, right? Is that I'm not the only one in this that's lived in this town for many, many, many years that has no understanding of the significance of that cemetery. And having a community cleanup day, I think, will help to disseminate that information.
Good, thank you, Tom. That brings us to the next topic. And Helen, you had recommended in an email that we start thinking about a historical township tour. So tell us a little bit about what's been done in the past and how we can organize.
Yeah, that's interesting because it hasn't been done since the early days of Terry, that I can recall that we were invited. At that point, we would go like every 3 years, especially as the supervisors turned over during elections. We would basically they take, I think it's bi-yearly or quarterly tours of the township in some little bus that they used to rent for the day, and with department heads. And they would take tours of the township to discuss issues mostly to do with the roads, because the township supervisors were basically the road supervisors as their main task. So they would take these tours and ride around, and we would be invited about every 3 years to sit on the bus with them, at least two of us out of the commission, and discuss what they're looking at in terms of the historic perspective. So, for instance, when we would drive down Big Oak Road, we would point out James Moon's house with the wall that goes along Makefield Road, or we would talk about the importance of the Moon family in Lower Makefield Township as they developed into the garden purveyor in the turn of the century. We would talk about on Big Oak Road, we would talk about the various things of the big oak that was originally there by the gas station, and how it was a dirt road by the time it got to where the Coles is today. Or we would discuss where the octagonal schoolhouse site was. We would just basically landmarks that are in the township that probably most of us don't even realize are there. And, we would make them aware that, as we're looking at this intersection, there's an old graveyard across the street, or there's an old house that this doesn't look very prosperous, but it's actually, a 1740s inn, that kind of thing. So that they would get some familiarity and hopefully a little appreciation of the fact that this township does have houses and artifacts that date back to the time of William Penn and before.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea, Helen. In addition to that, what about a self-guided tour? If we could get information pamphlets out or whatever, like the Covered Bridges tour that's in Bucks County, you can drive yourself and stop.
Well,
and
our little booklet that we did for the tricentennial in 1993, we had reprinted in 1998. It's still floating around. There's a couple of boxes around. I have got 2 boxes of them around township. That actually is a tour, but it's really large tour from north to south. And it has I forget how many stops, close to 50 stops. So it's way too much to do in one weekend or something like that. But a series of smaller brochures with houses of different sections of the township, like northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, break it into quadrants or even voting districts. We could, however you wish to divide the township, we could certainly even use that pamphlet as a basis and put together separate areas of the township for people to look at. I think if we combine with Monica and pulled up what public parks, et cetera, are available in those sections, we could actually produce a series of pamphlets that would have township history and public places to go as part of them. I think maybe we could get the supervisors involved in something like that to publish.
Tom, you're on mute. You're on mute.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
You can hear me, right?
yeah.
I mean, that could be a new project for
Yeah,
a
no,
group.
I would think just put them online, a series
Oh, there you
of
go.
self-tours online. You don't have to publish anything. And just disseminate, to the citizens of the township where they can get this information, advertise it, where these things are. And, we can do that with Facebook pretty easily.
When we did the tour book, we were very careful to pick buildings and houses, et cetera, that can be viewed from the street right of way, so that people aren't trespassing on private property. But as you drive by the house, for instance, the students that live at Edgewood, or that go to the Edgewood school, usually are not aware that the little white house across Edgewood Road, directly across from their soccer field, dates back to 1712. That's really kind of cool. Or if they walk down the driveway into Edgewood and they go down that road opposite, they'll pass Richard Huff's house with twin arches, as they make the bend down Moyer Road. So yeah, it's really in your neighborhood. There are artifacts. So the little Pocket Kids Kingdom playground with the little barn was actually the house of the village schoolmaster, Mr. Ritchie, that burned down at some point. That's why that picnic grove is there, and the barn foundation is still there. They probably don't look at that and think, wow, that's an old foundation for a colonial barn. Sorry. Tom, you're muted.
I'm pushing my button. I don't know why it's coming up. Yeah, no, I think these are excellent ideas. And this is the kind of thing that we need to do to get people aware of the historical significance of the town. So that, when the town starts pouring money into the preservation of these buildings, people will understand why it's important.
Right.
So I think in general, this public outreach, this education is a topic that we've touched on, but before is actually even one of our goals for this year. I would say, why don't we discuss it at our April meeting when we have our new members, because we need more people to help us with this. And this is also a topic that Victor's interested in. I think he'll be back in May,
Exactly.
and maybe he'd be interested in helping out on this too. But let's just pick a project, right, that we can kind of get started with.
Are we going to be able to hold some live meetings too? I mean, I think that would be.
Yeah, that was so number D, because I heard your request. So if you guys are open, we can hold the April meeting in person. Okay?
When you're in town.
I'll be in town. Not in town now, but I'll be in town. So yeah, I already reached out to Katie and asked her about it, and she said that would be okay. So if you guys are all in agreement,
Yeah.
I hear a motion.
This would be at the township building?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm good.
So I'll tell Katie we want to switch our April meeting to an in-person meeting. And that'll be great because we should have our new members and we can have a chance to meet them in person,
Awesome.
So on this closing out the township tour though,
Can we ask I was hoping John would be here, but I saw the email that he wasn't coming. Can we ask John to arrange that, or see if he can find out if there's a tour that the Board of Supervisors do? Can we talk to them about it, or suggest that one or two of us go along with them? I
okay,
would just like to meet the township manager personally too, and we have not met because, we're not in the building, et cetera.
Right.
It'd be nice to kind of get to know all of them.
right, okay. We can ask John about the.
Okay.
Around that. But Helen, just real quickly, if we were to do a historical township tour, what would you highlight on that tour? Like, what would be the, if you would, the stops?
Well, Yardley's house, Moyer, the Huff House. Probably go to Gauks Lane and see, I mean, do a sort of circle route. Talk about the canal. Talk about, what's embedded in certain township developments that you can see from the road. I'd figure it out. Probably what we did with those other tours, I went on a couple of them. Wherever they were discussing, I would look at things that were around it that I knew were historic and explain it to them. But they usually have agendas because there's areas where they have to spend money on a pumping plant or a paving project or something, and I would talk about we don't get too close to that or etc. About the expansion of Stony Hill Road and changing the direction of Stony Hill Road. And I remember telling them that I was aware that in certain deeds there was mention of a cemetery close to the junction of Stony Hill Road and where 332 is today. And they were just like going nuts. Oh no, really? I said there was a family cemetery or the Van Stance that was close to that intersection. So they were aware of it in case somebody hit bones when they were widening that intersection. They didn't find anything or nobody reported anything. So I guess it wasn't an issue, but of those things.
Right. Okay.
So.
I will find out from John whether they have already a
Okay.
tour schedule that we can, participate in, or whether we have to arrange it from.
Thank you.
Okay. CLG grant. CLG stands for Certified Local Government, and it's a program that's actually in place by the federal government. It's meant to have townships like ourselves become active in historic preservation. It's actually administered on a statewide basis. So Pennsylvania, the various states administer the CLGs. So Lower Makefield Township is a CLG. And because of that, we have some benefits. And one of those benefits is we get to apply for grants. Now, in general, in terms of there's some requirements too, and you saw one of them that went out around ongoing education. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Megan McNish, who is the Eastern Zone representative for the Pennsylvania SHPO, to come to one of our meetings, probably our May meeting, and just give a presentation on CLG. What is it? Why is it important? What are the benefits we get? What are the requirements that we have? Okay.
Who are you going to ask?
Megan McNish. Megan, she works for the PA SHPO.
PHMC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to have her come and give a presentation that also counts as education for us, ongoing education for us around that. So we understand it a little bit better, because honestly, until recently, I had no idea what it meant. I had no idea that we were required to be doing surveys on a regular
We're
basis.
supposed to be doing we're supposed to be doing education every year.
And we're supposed to be doing education and outreach. Exactly. Right. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Ralph and I wrote that grant. So I made that application and we're all happy when we got it. What it does is it bumps us to the top of the list for any state grants coming out.
Yeah.
So
As
when
well
you're a
as support.
CLG, you get picked first over an area that's not a CLG.
Right. So that was important for the Keystone grant that we submitted too, that we
Yeah,
were.
so that's why it was important to apply for it.
Even with I lost my train of thought. What we were discussing earlier. What were we discussing earlier? Oh,
I reported to Majewski.
We're talking about
Majewski.
Patterson Farm and then giving input. I mean, the SHPO's office is willing to do that for us because we are a CLG, and that's one of the benefits.
I reported my educational events in the past year to Majewski already. So when you give a presentation, I actually used to give the CLG presentations to the county for other HARB boards. So I would do something on, I don't know, how you look at old house sightings and just decide whether they're pre-1800 or not, that kind of thing. Since Steve's an architect and he's in the HARB board, he gets invitations to these conferences all the time for historic architecture. They're held around the state. And since he has to do credits, continuing education credits, he does them anyway. So I tagged along on a bunch of his CLG credits, one on New Hope this past summer. So I told Jim that. And then when we went to Ireland last year, I made it a point to go to the state-funded archaeological sites and discuss with the local archaeologists what they were doing. So I gave Jim a list. Anytime you do something like that, if you go on vacation and you go to a place where there's some kind of archaeology going on or some kind of restoration project going on, and you spend an hour or so discussing with someone who's associated with the project, that counts. Okay, so that's what Jim is looking for. He's got to make an annual report back to the state that we're continuing our personal education, self-education. So that's what he's looking for. So if you give a talk somewhere and talk about some aspect of history, or it can even be genealogy or whatever that has to do with your family or Pennsylvania history, it counts.
Right. So, so one of the benefits is also the grant, and I sent some information last night on that. And we have to, so what I wanted to do today is have a discussion around, do we want to apply and what topic? So I would say, yes, we want to apply. And my suggestion would be to take the grant, repurpose the grant that Chris wrote last year for PHMC for the archives and apply for this. My question, and I don't know, Chris, if you had a chance to look at that material, is does it fit? Because they talk about priorities for FY 2023 funding. And, you know, one of them is efforts to increase public participation in historic preservation, right? And certainly by cataloging and digitizing this information and getting it available to people at large, we can argue that that's part of getting the public involved in being able to look at this. The other is efforts to increase the accessibility of municipal resources, which it could fit under there also, because this information is owned by the township, and it could be said that we're going to look at how to make it more widely available to the public. So, what do people think about using Chris's grant and applying here with a CLG grant?
I think it makes sense. Yeah, right.
I'm particularly interested in the project I've been kind of focusing on the last couple months, which is the role of African Americans in Lower Makefield, particularly ex-slaves that come up from the South starting in the 1770s, 1730s, that come into the area to become free men, and then some of them served in the Civil War. So I'm tracing them and the foundation of the three churches communities, and I still don't know where the third community was in Yardleyville, which was the center of Lower Makefield Township at that point, because literally we can claim anything that happened in the borough of Yardley before 1895 as part of Lower Makefield Township, because it was until 1895. And by then, all three of those African-American communities were formed and actively working. And I know Linda Sally's interested in having the connection between Middletown Free Blacks and Bristol Free Blacks with Lower Makefield Free Blacks and see what was going on locally in the entire southeastern region of Pennsylvania, which I find really kind of very interesting. So that's where I'd put my focus as part of that archival study, but I think that's excellent, Chris. And I'm going to be collecting more documentation and making lists from censuses of who is where, and trying to figure out where they're living in the township, or some of them are living on farms. In fact, I have found consistently there were free blacks living on what is currently the Satterthwaite section of our Patterson farm from the 1730s on, which is really amazing. So they can be documented.
And Chris, that could be a good example of a project that benefits from us doing this
Right.
type of work, right? Because I think if there's any one thing that I think we could have done better in the initial grant application was talk about why that was important to the public, or why the public would benefit from it. I think we had some ideas. I remember we had to kind of late in the process and put some ideas in more towards the end, but we didn't flesh them out enough, So if we're in agreement on that, I guess the first thing as I look at the instructions on that one attachment is that we have to talk to Megan McNish by April 14th. So
Of this year?
but April 14th.
The submission's
Okay,
not, the submission's not,
No. We just have to talk to Megan. No,
Okay.
the submission isn't due until May.
Okay, good. Yeah, but it means I have to get on Linda Sally and get her to give us a letter of recommendation.
we would need a letter of support would be much
So we
appreciated.
got to get either her or Shirley to do it. Yeah,
We much
okay,
appreciate, right,
I'll get on them.
right. The deadline is May 12th.
Okay,
And I think the application actually is the second attachment, right? So we can just look at it. As opposed to Tom and I, which were guessing for most of it with the grant, the historic grant, the Keystone Historic Grant wanted until like the last week when we finally went on and downloaded the application. So I will reach out to Megan, and Chris, I'll try to get a time for us to speak with her, okay?
That sounds great.
And we can kind of review what our intentions are. I touched base with her a little bit about this when I spoke to her earlier this year, and she was the one who actually told me about CLG grants, and she said this would be a perfect topic for it. So,
Awesome.
Is there a certain time or dates, or just let me know by email what kind of dates or times work for you, and I'll set something up, okay?
Okay.
So that is the end of our prepared agenda. Anybody have any other topics?
I could mention I had a impromptu hike this past weekend in 5 Mile Woods, which I didn't intend to do, but I was supposedly just going to take a short hike, and it ended up being 4.8 miles because we were running an orienteering training session for the scouts. But I wanted to visit the Dark House Foundation and see what kind of condition it was in, which is the only kind of old house that is, it's an archaeological site in 5 Mile Woods. And it was very disturbing to find out it's been totally destroyed. It is covered up. Somebody actually filled in the cellar hole. There used to be a fireplace support. The Dark House probably dated to the 1690s. Darks were glovers that were living on that hillside, looking down into Falls Township, and it's gone. The stones are still there. You can see the outline of where the front of the house was, but it was covered in briars, and I'm covered in scars from trying to get in and looking at it. But unfortunately, there's nothing to see. The whole, it had a cool little arch that was this fireplace support, and it's gone. Just report on it.
All right, sorry to hear that. Are there any other public comments?
No public comment online.
Okay. Just real quick as we go through, just want to get the action items down. So Chris, you're going to reach out. I still think it makes sense to reach out to PHMC about our application and understand how to improve it, because we can bring that feedback into the CLG grant.
Agreed.
On the resubmission for Patterson Farm, we'll start pulling together some documentation, and Helen and Tom and I will review that, and we'll reach out to the SHPO's office and see if we can get a.
We've missed the deadline for the early one, but we can certainly make, there's a fall meeting
For what?
to review applications for the National Register.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, Ben's going to do just a one-on-one session with us around ours and what
Okay.
we need to do. So we'll schedule. Again, that's part of the CLG process. Repair and clean up at Slate Hill. I will reach out to Derek and figure out when Public Works can get the big stuff out of there, and then we'll turn it over to Tom in terms of getting the kind of community cleanup day set up. And then new member recruitment next week. So April meeting is going to be in person. I'll reach out to John. I'll ask him if there is a existing town tour for us to work with them on, or whether we need to schedule that. And then Chris and I will reach out to Megan and we'll get something set up around the CLG grant. All of that in just over an hour, maybe 1 hour exactly.
I'm going to call Linda and Shirley to get to some recommendations for a new grant.
Yeah.
What happened with Perry Warren's office?
They got it. We got 4 letters of recommendation.
Awesome.
We got
Okay,
it from-
I was worried about that because that
Yep.
was odd.
From Representative Warren, Senator Senaciro. We got it from VFW. And then we got the one that Jim reached out to Jennifer Stark, and Jennifer wrote us one from the Historical Society.
Interesting. Okay, that's awesome too.
Yeah, so that was great. Well, it's great that we had two community ones also that talked about the importance of this. So
Yeah, good
Yeah.
job.
yeah, the VFW one was really good, Helen. Because it supported the things we said in the application. It wasn't.
Yeah, I wonder why.
exactly. So it was really good. Yeah. All right.
All right.
Sounds like a
Thank you,
productive
guys.
night, guys. All right. We'll see each other in person in a month.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, everyone. Good
Sounds
night
good.
now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.